Difference good. It keeps it really, really loud in the news cycle, and that's why we're here. We're going to turn down the noise, bring you good information, get to what we need to know to discern the times we're living in, especially during election season. And we also always love keeping up with what's going on with our friends over in the UK and around the world. That's that global perspective we want to keep, even though we do local focus, national focus. Perspective's importance. It's one of our core values here at Heard Tell. So, till we see you all again, we hope you have a great weekend. We hope you're with us for the Twice on Sunday replay show on Sunday. Until we see you again on Monday, wherever you are, we hope you and yours are well. We hope you're well fed. And we'll see you again right back here from our Heard Tell. Take care.
All the music on Heard Tell is provided under a Creative Content license from MonsterCat.com.
Bringing you the best local talk radio shows, Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM, WFBT, Carolina Beach. Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE-certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's starting with the woots. And now a speech.
I just want to say that friendship is about heart and brain. Who's with me?
Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
And my brain is saying, when it's time to go home, somebody call me a ride.
Love that guy.
Me too.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. In South Carolina, a former Horry County Sheriff's deputy will spend the next 18 years in prison. Stephen Flood has been found guilty on all charges in the drowning of 2 female mental patients in his custody during Hurricane Florence. One of them was from Charlotte. Flood and his co-worker at the time, Joshua Bishop, drove a detention center transport van into floodwaters in Marion County on September 18, 2018. Wendy Newton of Charlotte and Nicolette Green of Myrtle Beach were in the back of that van, and both women died inside. Flood was found guilty yesterday on 2 counts of reckless homicide and 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Bishop has been charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. In Bladen County, the sentencing for a major sex crimes case is being pushed back by several weeks. Peter Frank was found guilty on 17 charges of sex crimes with a child on Tuesday. The former New Hanover County Schools band teacher was supposed to be sentenced yesterday, but the sentencing was pushed back to June 7th. Several people involved in the case came to Bladen County Court only to find out the closure they were hoping for has been moved to next month. Parking in Carolina Beach has been a controversial issue since Town Council voted to charge for parking year-round. Visitors and business owners now say the company under contract to ticket vehicles is very aggressive. Some say they're worried the aggressive enforcement and higher fines for infractions will discourage people from coming back to Carolina Beach. The general manager of Kate's Pancake House says he's trying to help by offering parking in his lot and the deck house parking lot to prevent customers from getting a $100 fine. Mayor Pro Tem Jay Healy says the company handling parking is doing what it has been hired to do, making sure people are following the parking rules. An annual parking pass for Carolina Beach property and business owners is $40 a year for cars and $60 a year for golf carts. For more on these stories, you can head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
Happy Friday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Get ready for the hottest day of the year once again. As our high temperatures climb into the middle 90s away from the coast and in the Wilmington area, we could set a new record high by jumping above 94 degrees later this afternoon. Along the coast, we're going to get into the middle and upper 80s. Certainly a nice beach day. Find ways to stay cool and hydrated this afternoon and overnight tonight. Partly cloudy skies in store for us and temperatures fall down to the low to middle 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by 2 Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to 2menandatruck.com. 2menandatruck.com.
Neil Armstrong waited 6 hours and 39 minutes to step onto the surface of the moon. Jackie Robinson waited 20 months to play his first game with the Brooklyn Dodgers. And even DiCaprio had to wait 22 years to win an Oscar. You can wait until your destination. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. Tune in Thursdays from 6 to 7 p.m. for Objection to the Form, covering civil litigation, real estate issues, and intellectual property. That's Objection to the Form, Thursdays 6 to 7 p.m. right here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Was your home damaged by Hurricane Florence or Matthew? Repair, reconstruct, or elevate your home with help from Rebuild NC. Find out if you are eligible for assistance by calling 833 Ask RBNC. That's 833-275-7262. Or apply now at rebuild.nc.gov/repair.
Hey, welcome back to the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad, right here on the Big Talker. Please visit bigtalker.live for the schedule of content and links to the iOS and Android devices so that you can have the Big Talker at your fingertips anywhere and everywhere you want to go. It's a pretty cool thing to do, so do it now. Yeah. Good morning, welcome back to the Asylum. It's a Friday. It's it's amazing you made it. It's amazing I made it. Elon Musk almost made it. A little parallel story here. Has nothing to do with Twitter, has nothing to do with SpaceX or PayPal or any of that. It starts with the word accused. Now, I'm going to relate a story that happened to my father, who was a medical practitioner. He was a doctor for the Veterans Administration Hospital for 40 years, and upon retirement decided he wanted to explore artistic photography, and he consulted with a few people and came up with a little release form. So whenever he hired a model, he would pay them, $100, $200, whatever, to for photography. Now, he thought it was a bit intrusive to ask for a person's ID, but he did have a signed release form that says I verify under penalty of perjury or whatever that everything in this is legit and honest and true, and that I am over the age of 18 and all this good stuff. Well, apparently this young female had lied to my father and signed that she was over 18, then decided to accuse him of sexual misconduct by taking photographs of her topless body as part of an artistic series he was working on, and it ruined him. The newspaper jumped on it like you would not believe, and they vilified my dad like you would not believe. When it was finally taken to court, because they arrested my dad, put him in jail. Here's a man who hasn't, the only person he hurt was me and my brother and my mom. Right, he was only violent to the people at home, and by this point, he had been sober a good 20 years and was, understanding his place in the world. And one accusation ruined everything. Even when he went to court and proved that this woman had lied and perjured herself, for which she had to serve some time, my father was released. No apology. Right, my father's standing in that community was ruined by an allegation. Elon Musk has recently been alleged in some sort of misconduct with the opposite gender. And this has been a fear of mine since I was a child. I do not shake hands with women. I don't want to be in the same room with them because I do not want to be mischaracterized or accused of something that just simply is not in my character. But that's all it takes is an accusation, and your life is ruined. Dan Bishop, I think his name was, out of North Carolina. He was one of the conservative representatives, was accused of misconduct. And he knew there was no way out, and he shot himself. Now, in his case, I don't know where this came from, what it was about. I don't know enough about the guy. So I don't know if that was legit or not. But the result was the same. Just an accusation is enough to ruin a person's life, because you are then guilty before you ever get to court. That's what happened to my dad. This is some pretty scary stuff. So yeah, I think we need to reevaluate how we handle accusations, right? And the people that are accused or that are doing the accusing falsely should be as vilified as what they did to my father in the newspaper in his town. Oh, they finally did print a correction, right? 3 sentences on the 17th page of the 5th section at the bottom where it says corrections. And it was, one entry in a list of 30 or 40, which tells me the newspaper wasn't doing a very good job of policing itself. But they are still completely allowed to fry my dad on the front page of their newspaper. So yeah, it's a good time to be absolutely terrified of being around anybody of the opposite sex or being alone with anyone, anywhere, anytime. I mean, it's to the point I'm ready to wear a body cam 24 hours a day, just so that there cannot be any misconstruing of anything that I have ever done. Because I really don't care about anything else about except getting a good job done, usually in my video and audio and radio presentation. Gender is not an issue in there. But when I have to work with somebody of the opposite gender, I want to make sure there is at least one other person and that there is absolutely no physical contact whatsoever. Might do a head nod. I don't even shake hands. Even if I know the person, even if I know everybody around that person, I'm sorry. Because of our environment, I refuse. I will not. And unless I have to directly work with you, chances are I'm not going to speak with you much at all. Not because I don't like you, but because I do not want to be accused of anything. I do not want my life ruined because somebody had a bad moment and decided to throw me under the bus. Right? That's all it takes is an accusation and your life is over. How would you handle it? You can't get mad, right? If you're being arrested on a false accusation and you get mad, that just makes you look like an idiot. Right? If you try to resist arrest, they just beat the snot out of you and then put that down as, well, not only is he an accused rapist, he's also resisting arrest, and man, it's just all bad. And that's all it takes is an allegation. Then you have somebody saying, okay, so here's another one, allegation. If anybody remembers the Central Park 5, none of which were involved in the crime for which they were accused, but they were hung, basically, in the court of public opinion, spearheaded by somebody you and I both know. That he took out an entire full-page ad in the New York Times, I think it was, calling for the crucifixion and basically murdering of what he called the Central Park 5. He never apologized, by the way, even though it was discovered that these 5 kids had absolutely nothing to do with what they were accused of. Their lives were ruined. Thank you. Does it seem like I'm a little over paranoid? No. This is why I don't hang out with people anymore, because y'all are dangerous. The M is silent, by the way. So yeah, if ever there's a huge group of that sort of thing, you will find me elsewhere. Let somebody else get accused. Let somebody else go to jail for something they didn't do. Not me. So whenever, there are times that we can believe this stuff. I would not be surprised at all if Madison Cawthorn had been accused of sexual misconduct. Or Donald Trump, if he had been accused of sexual misconduct. These people have that type of person. I have never seen or understood Elon, and I don't know the guy. Maybe the allegation is true, but I highly doubt it. But that's me. I'm not saying the guy is, walking on water. He's smart, but he's also stupid. He's humble but narcissistic. It's a really weird, unique combination in that human being. There's madness and there's genius, but I don't think that sexual misconduct is anywhere in the character of that man. But all it takes, like I said, all it takes is an allegation. All it takes is someone to say, I don't like that guy. He touched me wrong. And boom, your life is over. Even if it's found to be untrue, as it was in my father's case, right? I think they slapped her on the wrist saying, don't do that anymore. Now that you're over 18, you'll go to jail, even though she was over 18 by the time the court case happened. But absolutely no recourse or respite for my father. You don't think that any time you went to the grocery store to get some shallots and kale and ground beef that he wasn't stank-eyed by everybody in that room, in that store? Oh, yeah. Full front page pictures of my dad in cuffs being loaded into the police car. Thank you very much. Oh, but we printed our apology. We printed our retraction as part of a series of, 80 other corrections y'all had to make because y'all just suck at being a newspaper. But hey, thanks for ruining my dad's life. That was fun. That's what he needed just before he passed. So yeah, if you want to fry someone's life, that's all you got to do is just accuse them of sexual misconduct, and they'll never get rid of that. Do we have any recourse for that? The only one I know of is to make damn sure you are not alone. Do not get within arm's reach. Do not look. Avoid if at all possible. I mean, this is something Rudy Giuliani could have, benefited from before he got Borated. Right? Because if these people have that tendency, all you got to do is throw them a crumb and they will expose themselves quite literally. So maybe we need to review or I don't know. I'm not saying we don't need to believe everybody, etc., but there should be an absolute, lavage, if you will, that if somebody is cleared, for example, the Central Park 5 or the case of my father, that there is an absolute scrub of this misdeed by the newspaper printing on page 1 a complete retraction, and interview would have been nice with my dad, an absolute correction all the way around that says, we are seriously sorry for frying your father's sense or whatever it is. I'm just, it still pisses me off. And that's all it takes. One allegation. That's why I like working by myself hundreds of miles away from anybody. I mean, how much worse would it be if a male accused me of sexual misconduct? Yeah. That's why I avoid all of you people. Y'all are just evil and heinous. And this is proof positive of that. I'm not saying that every allegation is fake, but I am saying that anytime an allegation is errant, there should be some serious repercussions on the side of the accuser. And I think it should be far beyond the boy who cried wolf. I think the same jail time that my father was looking at is what should have been imposed on the person who accused him and then lied about it twice, lied about her age, and then lied about her consent. Pivoting over to more heinousness as evidenced here in North Carolina, Carolina Beach specifically. Parking in Carolina Beach has been a controversial issue since Town Council voted to charge for year parking year-round, which was struck down just a month ago. Visitors and business owners now say the company under contract to ticket vehicles is very aggressive. Some say they're worried the aggressive enforcement and higher fines for infractions, by the way, they all doubled or so, will discourage people from coming back to Carolina Beach. I won't go unless I'm being paid and I have guaranteed parking. If you have a gig for me in Carolina Beach, that's one of the first issues we're going to knock out, because I am not paying for parking. I am not getting my car towed. I am not getting ticketed. If you want me to do a gig in Carolina Beach, you will figure something out. Some say they're worried the aggressive enforcement. General manager of Kate's Pancake House says he's trying to help by offering parking in his lot and the deck house parking lot to prevent customers from getting a $100 fine. Costs $5 an hour, $100 ticket if you miss 1 hour. $100. That's 20 hours apart. That's an entire day. Even beyond the 12 hours, right? Because they park 8 to 8. They have the longest running paid parking time of any of the beaches in our area. What? What? Oh, I couldn't tell what was going on. The door just started opening and nobody's answering me. What the hell? Trying to bother me while I'm on the radio. $100 fine. Where was I? Yep. Mayor Pro Tem Jay Healy says the company handling parking is doing what it has been hired to do, making sure people are following the parking rules. An annual parking pass for Carolina Beach property and business owners is $40 a year for the cars if you can get one. Right? Absolutely no non-resident passes whatsoever. That was eliminated from previous years. Only now have they gone away from, only because enough people came out at the town council meeting and forced them to make a vote to eliminate year-round parking. Well, that didn't do me any good. So yeah, I would think that everybody should just boycott Carolina Beach at this point, because they've gotten too greedy to the point that they no longer offer anything. Oh, you're pissing me off. All right, we're just taking a break. Screw it.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. In South Carolina, a former Horry County Sheriff's deputy will spend the next 18 years in prison. Stephen Flood has been found guilty on all charges in the drowning of 2 female mental patients in his custody during Hurricane Florence. One of them was from Charlotte. Flood and his co-worker at the time, Joshua Bishop, drove a detention center transport van into floodwaters in Marion County on September 18, 2018. Wendy Newton of Charlotte and Nicolette Green of Myrtle Beach were in the back of that van, and both women died inside. Flood was found guilty yesterday on 2 counts of reckless homicide and 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Bishop has been charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. In Bladen County, the sentencing for a major sex crimes case is being pushed back by several weeks. Peter Frank was found guilty on 17 charges of sex crimes with a child on Tuesday. The former New Hanover County Schools band teacher was supposed to be sentenced yesterday, but the sentencing was pushed back to June 7th. Several people involved in the case came to Bladen County Court only to find out the closure they were hoping for has been moved to next month. Parking in Carolina Beach has been a controversial issue since Town Council voted to charge for parking year-round. Visitors and business owners now say the company under contract to ticket vehicles is very aggressive. Some say they're worried the aggressive enforcement and higher fines for infractions will discourage people from coming back to Carolina Beach. The general manager of Kate's Pancake House says he's trying to help by offering parking in his lot and the deck house parking lot to prevent customers from getting a $100 fine. Mayor Pro Tem Jay Healy says the company handling parking is doing what it has been hired to do, making sure people are following the parking rules. An annual parking pass for Carolina Beach property and business owners is $40 a year for cars and $60 a year for golf carts. For more on these stories, you can head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
Happy Friday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Get ready for the hottest day of the year once again. As our high temperatures climb into the middle 90s away from the coast and in the Wilmington area, we could set a new record high by jumping above 94 degrees later this afternoon. Along the coast, we're going to get into the middle and upper 80s. Certainly a nice beach day. Find ways to stay cool and hydrated this afternoon and overnight tonight. Partly cloudy skies in store for us and temperatures fall down to the low to middle 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by 2 Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to 2menandatruck.com. 2menandatruck.com.
We need judges who serve we the people, not self-interested career politicians. This is Jenny Statting, wife of Judge Michael Statting, your conservative candidate for North Carolina Court of Appeals. Michael is a former prosecutor, sitting Republican judge, and a reservist in the United States Air Force. Michael is a lifelong public servant. That is why I'm asking you to remember to vote for Judge Michael Statting, your conservative candidate for North Carolina Court of Appeals. Paid for by the committee to elect Michael Statting. Michael Statting is a reservist for the United States Air Force. Use of job title does not imply endorsement by the Department of Air Force or the Department of Defense.
Teachers and parents, the North Carolina Symphony is here to support you as you carry on the education of your children and students. Take your kids on a free virtual field trip to the Symphony with a virtual education concert and companion student book. Go on a virtual journey to learn what makes music music with music by William Grant Still, Beethoven, Brahms, and more. Access the free video and student book with password 1932 at ncsymphony.org/virtual.
Enjoying Big Talker Network is as easy as asking for it. Program your digital home assistants such as Google Home, Alexa, and Siri to stream Big Talker Network content by simple voice command. Enjoy convenient hands-free access to the program whenever you want, however you want, by asking for Big Talker.
All right, let's try this again. Welcome back to the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad. Right here on the Big Talker Network, bigtalker.live. Please visit the website. Content, email, questions, comments, concerns, critiques, compliments. We can't get better without your help. There's a lot going on the planet right now, including elections and all kind of craziness. In fact, we have a special guest on later this morning at the next hour, 9 o'clock. Introduced, or I don't know the guy. And I'm also not the best at interviewing people like that. So y'all in the audience get a special double feature with our host or guest or friend. I mean, the guy has been instrumental in helping me keep this station on track. Mr. Andrew Donaldson will be interviewing Mr. Luke. I gotta look up his last name again. Luke Ball from RightLife Media. What is it? RightLife Media. See, this is how little I know about it. And Andrew, who interviews people every day of the week, right? I'm going to be paying attention and taking notes. Because eventually I'm going to be the one doing this, because Andrew will probably be on vacation in Italy or Spain or some exotic island of Greece. And I'm going to get called to do an interview and be like, yeah, I'll try it. I got a few notes here. So I'm looking forward to that. I bet you are as well. Oh, come on. Why is everything messing with me today? I think what happened was all the calluses on my fingers makes it impossible for an iPad to track my behaviors, right? I'm trying to pull up applications and pull up a news story, and for some reason, my fat thumbs just, man, get off of me. You're really starting to upset me. One more time. So again, if you haven't been accused, just give it time, ladies and gentlemen. Here's an article that sort of lends itself to my point. Workers hope returning to office will help their sex life, according to a survey. This is published by National World News. I don't know about these people, but according to a new survey, more than a third of single white-collar workers think returning to the office will help their sex lives. No. What it will do is improve your chances of being accused of sexual misconduct. Sex can happen, wrote a single and willing employee of NBC Universal in response to the survey. Some jobs require people after 8. Meanwhile, a bank of employee said returning to work would help her get lucky because I'll have a reason to meet people in real life. While 35% of available office workers think working in person will help their sex lives, 49% said it won't matter. According to a survey of more than 2,500 office workers by corporate gossip site Blind, just 16% believe it will make their sex lives worse. Singles in some firms are more upbeat than others. 50% of singles at Capital One, Cisco, NVIDIA, and Salesforce said returning to work in person would help them get lucky, while 40% at Amazon and T-Mobile said the same. 50% of singles at Capital One, Cisco, NVIDIA, nope. Meanwhile, at Uber, which has tried to clean up its culture in recent years after enduring a string of sexual assault scandals, only 16% of singles said in-person work would help with their sex lives, while 32% said it would cause damage. At J.P. Morgan Chase, whose top boss, Jamie Dimon, recently softened his stance on individual work, 20% of bachelors and graduates think working in person will help them in the bedroom, compared with 32% of single Meta employees and 33% of singles. Google said the same thing. Since a single Googler wrote that the work in person would not affect their sex lives because they are already getting loose. Hinge and Tinder still exist, said the Google employee. Of workers in relationships, 57% said that work in person would have no effect on their sex lives, while 18% said it would help, and 25% said it would hurt. Distance makes the heart grow bigger, wrote an employee of League of Legends developer Riot Games who is in a relationship. Blind verifies the employment of users through their corporate email addresses, if you want to know. So, that's just not a good... You don't go to work to get lucky. I mean, what a mature way to put that in. Getting lucky at work? Really? No, you're supposed to go to work to get work done. You don't go to... It's not a meat market, for Christ's sake. Right? So, the fact that people are thinking... This is the other half of the coin. This is why there are so many accusations and allegations of sexual misconduct in the workplace. Doesn't matter if you're the biggest Fox News guy or Mr. Rocket Ship guy. You don't go to work to get laid. That's all there is to that. You go to work to get work done. If you go to work with that mindset, then yeah, you need a counselor. You need to be removed from society and re-educated about how the work environment is, right? I know a lot of you are laughing because you are the reason why you have to have a yearly workshop on sexual harassment in the workplace. Not funny on either side. This is a flaming bowl of lava problem. Because again, one erroneous allegation can ruin a person's life, but an unfounded or an uninvestigated allegation can lead to trauma for a victim. But we as human beings just can't seem to be honest with ourselves or each other. I mean, I'll look at everybody in the former administration from the top down. None of these people were, and most of the politicians, all the way around. But the ones who stand out, Boebert, Green, Cawthorn, these are not people known to be honest. I mean, unless there is honestly cocaine-fueled orgies going on in the octogenarian chambers of the Senate or the House, or both, right? It's a big building. There's 535 people all up in there, man. That's a lot of cocaine. And that's a lot of extra work for your housekeeping. But that seems to be the basis of where we're at. That we get a job just so that we can get lucky. Unless, of course, you're this lucky Googler who's already getting loose. Is this how we really behave and think in the 21st century across gender lines? That we go to work expecting, anticipating a liaison, a tryst? Is that why we go to work? We are warped as a species. Americanus, humanus Americanus. We're just horrible. I wonder if what's interesting is that I'm pretty sure this is all like surveying Americans. I wonder how this would go over in Europe, in Britain, in Germany, right? Some places like North Korea, I'm sure it's, par for the course. It might even be a requirement. But here, where we seem to be all concerned about human rights and such, can we figure this one out? We can't even come to terms with abortion. We can't even come to terms with what is a decision, what is a right. When are we allowed to say no? That would be... Because one of the arguments in the abortion thing is if a person is raped, are they required to carry their rapist's baby to term? Whose decision is that? There's a lot in there that needs to be unpacked. But that's, again, based on the heinous actions of heinous people. One of them, Edward Jerome Moore Jr., who has a history of felonious attacks on women, has yet to be convicted by the state of North Carolina and thrown into prison, under the prison, buried. No, they keep releasing him out there until, oh, surprise, he attempted another rape, attempted another strangling of a woman. But they keep releasing Edward Jerome Moore Jr. and his father, Jerome Edward Moore, who moved here from Texas so he wouldn't have to align himself or put his name on the sex registry, who has himself been convicted and spent time in prison, as did Edward, for rape. But no, we just don't seem to care. I even asked the people in Texas, oh, yeah, he's in North Carolina, we don't care. I asked North Carolina, we don't have any record of it. Oh, really? Here it is. Yeah, well, we can't do anything. That's Texas. Wonderful. So all the women in North Carolina, certainly around the Durham area, are at risk by this guy, and yet he is not required in the state of North Carolina to register as a sex offender, only because he moved here from Texas without telling Texas that he left. And now his son, who's been arrested no less than 3 or 4 times for violent offenses, including firing into an occupied car and several rape convictions, as well as breaking and entering into my studio and stealing my gear, scot-free. Man has not spent a day in jail yet. So, yeah, there's a lot that needs to be unpacked here, a lot that needs to be figured out, because there's a lot that's not being looked at, a lot that's not being, what's the word, there's no consequences for these actions. So, Mr. Edward Jerome Moore, out in the Durham area himself, unless he's left the city again, he had to leave Jacksonville because there were too many people after him there, moved to Durham. Now there's got to be some people out there looking for him. Yeah, we're winning, aren't we? We are winning. If that doesn't convince you, which side are you on? Are you being accused? Are you guilty and trying to get out of it? I think this story might be a good reflection of the results of this consternation coming out of New York Post. Another survey, more people would rather sleep with their pet than their spouse. Written by Brooke Cato. They may not complain about being in the doghouse now. A new survey found that pet owners actually prefer sleeping with their pets over their partners. Out of 2,000 American pet owners in the study, which was reported by one poll and commissioned by a mattress company, Sealy, 66% said they allow their precious pets to sleep in their bed, while 58% of respondents in relationships admitted to preferring to share a bed with their furry friends and not their significant others. Slightly more than half said that doing so aided their stress and anxiety, while 42% said their cuddly companion makes them feel secure in bed overall. The survey even discovered owners considered their sleep improved when sleeping with a pet in bed. Having a good night's rest is crucial to our overall health and well-being, Brent Feister, the Senior Vice President of Marketing for Sealy, told Southwest News Service. As shown by the study, co-sleeping with pets can bring a sense of security and can help people and their pets settle in easier for bedtime. However, many people sleeping with their pets experience interrupted nighttime sleep, and so may be sacrificing overall sleep quality and some of the more physical benefits gained from a night of good sleep. But it isn't all that surprising, since nearly 80% of the pet owners surveyed said they treat their pets just like humans, as 54% of pet owners considered their lovable animals to be members of the family. Despite feeling comforted and relaxed next to their four-legged friends, pet owners reported that their sleep was disrupted 2 nights a week on average because of their cute companion's restlessness, and 62% blamed their pets for feeling overheated. I mean, it is basically generating BTUs. Even though there may be some minor disruptions if their pets go bump in the night, 2/3 of the surveyed owners said their pet's internal clock is better than theirs, regularly using their fluffy friend as a guide for when to wake up and fall asleep. There are several relatively easy steps people can add to their sleep routine to get the high-quality sleep they need, Feister told Southwest News Service. The first 2 suggestions are limiting exposure to disruptive blue light from phones and TVs before bed, and, as much as possible, going to bed and waking up around the same time every day. Must be nice. Right? Some gigs I'm done at 2 in the morning, some gigs I'm done at 8 in the evening. Yeah, about the same time. Sure. So maybe if you start sleeping with an animal, you're less likely to be going to work trying to get lucky. That's just not a good snapshot of who we are. That we have 30 to 60% of our employees going to work because it'll help their sex life. I'm sorry, unless you're working at Penthouse, this should not be a thing. I could be wrong, I often am, and that's how I learn, because I get corrected, and I just have to, do it correctly. But again, I will do everything I can to make sure that there is absolutely no way to misconstrue anything about me or my presence as being inappropriate. In fact, it's just not that important to me. All right, I'm going to try and close out the hour with this and see what happens. Before we have our fantastic guest interviewer and guests on here, because I'm going to learn quite a bit from it, both in the subject itself and from the interview. But on this day in history, Take 3. 1609, Shakespeare's sonnets are first published in London, perhaps illicitly, by publisher Thomas Thorpe. In 1862, U.S. President Abraham Lincoln signs into law the Homestead Act to provide cheap land for the settlement of the American West, 80 million acres within 38 years. 1864, Spotsylvania campaign in U.S. Civil War ends after 10,920 killed or injured. 1927, jumping ahead another 60 years or so, at 7:40 a.m., Charles Lindbergh takes off from New York to cross the Atlantic for Paris aboard the Spirit of St. Louis, first nonstop flight. Now, there was no peanuts on board, I promise. 1990, here's one that should be even more interesting. The Hubble Space Telescope sends its first photographs from space. Now we got the James Webb Space Telescope, and it's showing us even more. I think many people have misidentified the photograph that Dr. Siegel is all excited about. Right? It's the apparently a picture of the black hole at the center of our universe, our galaxy, our little spiral arm Milky Way. And I think it's just a blurry picture of the Linux Ubuntu logo. Ah. Well, that's what it's like to be a dad. I mean, that's, woo. Sorry, there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes over here. Trying to keep a radio station running at 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. Running low on coffee. Running low on any sort of creative components. Just calcified cranium, really. It's about all I got at the moment. Working on it, though. Working on it. Now, I don't know if you believe in infanticide or not, but one woman came awful damn close. New York Post, I would say. Samantha Ibrahim, yes, from NewYorkPost.com. 2-year-old orders 31 cheeseburgers on DoorDash after taking mom's phone. Texas mom was in for a surprise when her toddler ordered a plethora of cheeseburgers via DoorDash all by himself. The kid is a cheeseburglar. Texas mom Kelsey Burkhalter Golden was in for a very cheesy surprise when her toddler sneakily took her phone and ordered 31 cheeseburgers from McDonald's. Barrett, too, cheekily grabbed his mom's cell to play some digital games but wound up buying an excess of fast food burgers via DoorDash. Ooh, the mom from Kingsville took to Facebook on Sunday to share that she has 31 free cheeseburgers from McDonald's if anyone is interested. Apparently, my 2-year-old knows how to order DoorDash, she jokingly scribed. Alongside the post, the mom shared a cute snap of Barrett sitting on a table and munching on a cheeseburger next to a mountain of yellow paper-wrapped McDonald's goodies next to him. The total bill for the extra lunchtime sandwiches was $92 and included a $16 tip for the DoorDash driver who had to make the trek to her house. Golden further elaborated on the funny moment with local news station KRIS, explaining that she had been using her computer when her son took her mobile device. She didn't think anything of it and believed it would just be fiddling around with the camera. He usually likes to take pictures of himself, and so he was doing that. I thought I'd locked the phone, but apparently I didn't, because then DoorDash came with 31 cheeseburgers. I don't know what to do with them. He only ate half of one, so I posted on a community page on Facebook here in Kingsville and asked if anybody wanted some. An interview with Khou, Khou, Golden noted that she'd hoping to keep her son from making large and unintended orders from food delivery services in the future. Duh. I guess I need to hide the app or something because DoorDash is not protected. Golden said she was hoping nearby friends would come to pick up a free cheeseburger. There's somebody coming in 10 minutes to pick some up, but I don't know how many she wants. You could go down to the public library on 3rd Street in Wilmington. You get rid of those in a heartbeat. I don't know if you could consider that $92 damage ding to your credit card to be tax deductible, but you can give it a shot. Looks like they have a picture here of the kid playing with the burgers, and it looks like he broke a couple of them. So, yeah, so much for that educational opportunity. You thought college was expensive. Try teaching a 2-year-old. But yes, here's an example of parenting, bad parenting, horrible parenting. No child under the age of 25 should have a cell phone, for Christ's sake. At the age of 16, you get a stick and a hoop. Right? At age 2, you should be eating paste and crayons. Not playing with a cell phone. And I think it was appropriate when I was a kid, right, growing up. Computer games didn't come out until I started growing hair under my arms. Had I known about video games or had video games been available at the level they are now when I was a child, I would not have made it through high school, I don't think. Because you talk about a placating medium, right? Absolutely no interaction. I see it happening here in the house, here in the yard, here in the neighborhood. Right? A number of car accidents have happened because somebody's trying to play Wordle in the traffic. Good job. Right? I forgot to mention this the other day. I had a gun, or did I? Had a gun pointed at me by a guy driving in the left lane in a 70-mile-an-hour zone doing about 60 miles an hour. As I passed him, I saw him texting away. And Mr. Drug Thugger over there, when I honked at him, got all upset like it was my fault that he was doing 60, weaving in and out of his lane in the fast lane of 140. And he decided to pull a gun and chase me down. Okay. Apparently the other vehicles that noticed this as well, I'm sure that he is now explaining to the officer why he was waving a gun around while driving like a stupid idiot in traffic. I had somewhere to be. I wasn't hanging around waiting on some chump doing 10 miles under while texting. I was already gone. And of course, by the time he's trying to catch up with me, I've already made it between a couple of trucks. And they're like, nope, you're going to have to shoot all of us. And this is where we are. I mean, it seems that if you try to call somebody out on doing something stupid in the middle of public, like the highway, that this person felt compelled or rightfully indignant to the point they can pull a gun out, which I'm sure was a legit registered handgun in the state of North Carolina with a proper carry permit, whether it's a concealed permit, because I did not see the gun prior. I just saw it when he pulled it out from between the seat or under the seat or wherever the hell he, procured it from. And it's like, oh, okay, you got a gun. That tells me that you are a coward. You are a worthless piece of crap, and really, go ahead, fire, go ahead. Because anybody with a reasonable and legitimate carry permit and a legitimate registered handgun would have looked at me and just been like, screw you, yeah, all right. Because we can't seem to take accountability for our actions when called out on them. Right? If you're doing 60 miles an hour in a 70-mile-an-hour zone in the left lane while texting and weaving all over the place, yeah, somebody honking at you is just trying to bring your attention back to not being a jerk. Not being... I get it. You were in a hurry to get you were ordering DoorDash burgers from McDonald's. Is that what you're doing? And that you would protect... And this is another one. I had this argument with somebody. It's like, if somebody breaks into your house and you're going to shoot them, that means you value more stuff than their life. Well, apparently, if he breaks into my house, he values my stuff more than his life, too. I don't have a gun. I do have one of those mag lights like the police use. I do have a couple of bats. One's made out of ash. One's made out of aluminum. But for the most part, there's nothing in my life that would attract criminal behavior. Certainly after Edward Jerome Moore Jr., thank God he didn't try to rape me. But he has tried to rape another woman and strangled her. And he is free today, walking around right now in Wake County, I think, Johnson County, wherever, Durham, North Carolina. Right? Anybody else? I mean, I don't know what this Teflon guy is made of or what's preventing North Carolina from holding him accountable for his actions, but hey, he's free to jump on every dating website there is. I don't know what that was about. All right. I'm going to take an early break. We're going to come back and do an interview. Things in the clock are getting a little sideways here, so I'm going to just tick away a few seconds and come up with a solution, and we will see you at the top of the hour. Don't go nowhere. It's a Big Talker. The Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad on the Big Talker. We'll be right back after these messages. Oh, yeah, don't go nowhere.
Keeping Bald Head Island informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. In South Carolina, a former Horry County Sheriff's deputy will spend the next 18 years in prison. Stephen Flood has been found guilty on all charges in the drowning of 2 female mental patients in his custody during Hurricane Florence. One of them was from Charlotte. Flood and his co-worker at the time, Joshua Bishop, drove a detention center transport van into floodwaters in Marion County on September 18, 2018. Wendy Newton of Charlotte and Nicolette Green of Myrtle Beach were in the back of that van, and both women died inside. Flood was found guilty yesterday on 2 counts of reckless homicide and 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Bishop has been charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. In Bladen County, the sentencing for a major sex crimes case is being pushed back by several weeks. Peter Frank was found guilty on 17 charges of sex crimes with a child on Tuesday. The former New Hanover County Schools band teacher was supposed to be sentenced yesterday, but the sentencing was pushed back to June 7th. Several people involved in the case came to Bladen County Court, only to find out the closure they were hoping for has been moved to next month. Parking in Carolina Beach has been a controversial issue since Town Council voted to charge for parking year-round. Visitors and business owners now say the company under contract to ticket vehicles is very aggressive. Some say they're worried the aggressive enforcement and higher fines for infractions will discourage people from coming back to Carolina Beach. The general manager of Kate's Pancake House says he's trying to help by offering parking in his lot and the deck house parking lot to prevent customers from getting a $100 fine. Mayor Pro Tem Jay Healy says the company handling parking is doing what it has been hired to do, making sure people are following the parking rules. An annual parking pass for Carolina Beach property and business owners is $40 a year for cars and $60 a year for golf carts. For more on these stories, you can head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
Happy Friday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Get ready for the hottest day of the year once again. As our high temperatures climb into the middle 90s away from the coast and in the Wilmington area, we could set a new record high by jumping above 94 degrees later this afternoon. Along the coast, we're going to get into the middle and upper 80s. Certainly a nice beach day. Find ways to stay cool and hydrated this afternoon and overnight tonight. Partly cloudy skies in store for us and temperatures fall down to the low to middle 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by 2 Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to 2menandatruck.com. 2menandatruck.com.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you or a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Enjoying Big Talker Network is as easy as asking for it. Program your digital home assistants such as Google Home, Alexa, and Siri to stream Big Talker Network content by simple voice command. Enjoy convenient hands-free access to the program whenever you want, however you want by asking for Big Talker.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE-certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Hey, welcome back to the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad, right here on the Big Talker Network. BigTalker.live is the website. If you would, please peruse our website so you can get a handle on the content schedule, as well as links to the iPhone and Android OS app for your phone. Also, an email link there for any comments, questions, concerns, compliments, or critiques you may have, because we cannot improve our station without you. Now, as promised, we have a new, friend to the station, Mr. Luke Ball, the founder and CEO of RightLife Media. So far, I have about 15 seconds experience with the man. And so far, I understand he speaks English. We're good with that. Welcome to the show this morning.
Thank you, TK. I think those are the only two things folks need to know about somebody before they bring them on the radio show. So we are ready to rock and roll.
Good point. So I tried, in the little time that I have to sort of look into the RightLife Media, and it seems that you have a watchdog approach to your website, yes?
Slightly, yes. RightLife Media has kind of branched out into a lot of different things. It's based here in Wilmington, North Carolina. I find myself mostly in the swamp of Washington, D.C. lately. But we're just an organization that has started doing media consulting for not just campaigns, but also ministries and members of Congress and folks that are across the nation who are trying to branch into social media, into print media, radio, digital radio, broadcast, a whole assortment of different mediums. And we have been operating for almost a year and a half now, and it's gotten a lot of traction. We're seeing a lot of positive response from folks, not just here in Wilmington, but across the nation, who kind of need to figure out what sort of different mediums are available. Campaigns used to be run with a very defined, narrow arena arena of television and radio, and now we're seeing opportunities to branch into Twitter and Facebook, and now it's not just even those, it's Truth Social and Getter and Parler and all these other alternative mediums. And so we help folks who are looking to grow their conservative brand, but also just try to make their voices heard in a world that's gone crazy as of late.
In a world gone mad. That's why we have the Asylum.
That's exactly right. That's why we're calling in today.
Now, when looking at some of this material, I'm guessing that it falls into, as you said, in the swamp, into different categories. Some are going to be conservative in nature. Some are going to be more social issue in nature. You know, the LGBTQ, which isn't necessarily a legal issue or a political issue, but it can be used as a cultural issue against each other. Are these some of the elements that are being explored as well?
Occasionally, when individuals are using RightLife Media, we'll break into some of the social issues and consult on the direction that the voters are feeling, the pulse of the nation on particular issues. And I think what you're looking at on our website was a response to an ad that our company had produced where a candidate was espousing Christian values, but the left, MSNBC, that outlet I believe you're referring to, that was I don't even remember the name of it, but I just remember they went completely nuts because they seemed to be threatened by the fact that a candidate would have been advancing conservative Christian values in Washington, D.C. And I have been surprised at what has disrupted the culture in the swamp. People do not want to hear folks who go against or counterculture to the narrative that's in Washington, D.C. and the swamp. And we get articles written about it. And I thought, well, what better way to try and advertise that our content is breaking through the noise and actually getting some sort of attention than by showing that these articles are being written about it from the left-wing media. So that has been a couple of stories of success. But, you know, over the last few weeks, even that has come under further attack. Free speech has come under further attack with this government disinformation board the Biden administration has suggested, and now we've been told it's been put on pause, and Nina Jankowicz, the head of it, has stepped down. But
wait.
Still
run that. What was the name of that board again?
So there has been over the last few weeks proposed by the Biden administration a government disinformation board. This disinformation board. Yeah, go ahead.
This almost sounds like the joke where the guy's in the pharmacy and he says, "Hey, is this good for headaches?" And right? And it's aspirin. It's like, well, wait a minute. No, it's not going to give you a headache, but this hammer will. So, right? Is this board actually supposed to be generating the disinformation, swirling the bucket, as it were, or is this supposed to clarify the swamp water? I
think the way that it was spun was that it was supposed to clarify and clear the water of disinformation. But I don't trust the government to do hardly anything at all. I think the best way to ruin an idea is to have a three-letter agency try and accomplish it. And that's what's happened with the Department of Homeland Security taking on the role of trying to combat, quote-unquote, misinformation. But the question comes into play, who gets to define this misinformation? Because if it were the Democrats and the left, then they would have said years ago that the Steele dossier was the absolute gospel truth, that Hunter Biden's laptop was completely fake, that the Russia collusion actually happened. And now we know that all of those turned out to be either completely true or completely false, in the opposite of direction of what the Democrats and the government was saying. And I just was blown away by the fact that people would actually think this was a good idea to not just create, but also put under the Department of Homeland Security, because these are the folks that will come and kick down your doors if they think that you have committed a crime. And so I was wondering when it would actually transition from just, oh, we're correcting the narrative, to, well, now you were asserting a false viewpoint and we're kicking down your door for a thought crime.
Well, I have a question about that along the lines of in America, the free market is usually regulating itself along certain, like when selling radios, one guy trying to sell the same radio for $1,000 and another one selling it for $20, the market will kind of correct itself, right? That they'll understand that I'm not going to support this guy. Do you think the same thing might be happening in the private sector, where places or brands like RightLife Media are able to bring their own information independent of the governmental assistance? If that makes any sense, where we're able to sort of correct the market for ourselves instead of relying on the government to correct stuff for us. Because they've done such a wonderful job with our educational system.
Well, that's exactly right, because you see our education system being pulled in one direction, and that's exactly what would have happened under this information board. The slant of quote-unquote truth or facts would have been drawn into a left-wing viewpoint. I trust the people to have a legitimate conversation about whether or not something should be propped up in society or not. I've seen several examples of somebody putting something online and a lot of other folks saying this is wrong and having a legitimate argument. But by and large, it's a lot of noise, and people can sort it out online. I don't hash out my arguments on Twitter. It's widely unproductive. But that's what was going to happen with the Biden's disinformation board, is that they would come in and police the debate. They would be the ones to determine what was true, what was false, what was actually information, and what was disinformation. And, that just seemed very scary to me. And I think it's also why the left seemed to kind of lose their minds when Elon Musk, who is not a conservative, by the way, decided to come in and try to push aside some of the folks who were in charge of policing this stuff. They freaked out because they knew they were going to be exposed for having thrown back the permission for conservatives to actually go out and advance their narrative, and allowing a left-wing viewpoint to rise to the top by messing with the algorithm. That was their woke little bubble, and Elon Musk seemed to pop it.
Oops. I mean, I kind of hate it when, somebody points out and says, that's not Santa. Right. At some point, your maturity needs to be able to grapple with some realities that may not be entirely comfortable.
Right.
Discovering that Santa isn't real is one of them.
Right. Sorry for the kids listening in, and actually this is news to me. But I got some plenty of questions to go ask Mom and Dad right now. But you're exactly right, because for the left, it seems as if they don't want to have their feelings hurt. And so they then try to change what is true, what is fact, and what is acceptable to be brought up online or in person. And that's what I feel the disinformation board would have become, just an opportunity for people to silence other people with the dissenting viewpoint. Because when you can't win the argument, you silence your opponent. And it's extremely disturbing to people who really believe in the First Amendment to see it come under attack in such a way, where we're seeing judiciary hearings across up in Washington, D.C., and a debate across the nation happening where people are actually being able to sit in settings, have a conversation about science and facts when it comes to really important issues like abortion, or when it comes to issues like one I never thought that we'd have to grapple with in my lifetime: can men get pregnant? And the science and the facts seem to be rising to the top a little bit when you have these interactions in a public setting. But whenever you go into the woke echo chambers of Silicon Valley, they want to draw back the ability for conservatives to go out there and make an argument for themselves.
And it seems like to do that, they've limited, or I should say they've, it seems that there is a trend towards 5-word memes that try to encapsulate the entire argument when it's actually an embarrassment to both the poster and the reader.
Right. No, you're exactly right. And
how do you combat that?
The fact is, there comes a certain point where, for me as a RightLife Media CEO, for my clients, just trying to combat any sort of narrative, just trying to combat any sort of false information, for example, is sometimes very difficult because the media does not want the conservatives to rise to the top, and so the algorithm is changed to suppress their viewpoint. And then when the print media gets a hold of something that you were trying to combat and they run with the narrative without even coming and talking to you, then they grow the problem even larger and spread more and more disinformation, but they're not checked by the folks on the left. They're not checked by the Democrats. I had an instance one day, or yesterday actually, where a reporter wrote an entire article about one of my clients that never even happened. And I had the text messages to prove it. He never reached out to me for comment. And then they take their content that they write online and publish and put it on social media, and then the ball gets rolling, and I kind of call it the snowball effect, where you start a little pile of disinformation and it starts to roll downhill. But then when the alternative viewpoint doesn't get an opportunity to push back or have the ability on some of these platforms like Twitter or Facebook to actually fight that narrative, that can be very damaging to a candidate or a client. And that's something that RightLife Media has been trying to push back against and fight, where we have to call out disinformation and push back against it. But guess what? I didn't need the government to do that for me. I was able to do it through my own volition, starting a business and trying to push back against some of the false information that I saw coming from the left, because I knew that that was my responsibility as an American citizen. I didn't need Joe Biden to create a board in the Department of Homeland Security to do it for me.
It does seem to be part of the entrepreneurial spirit of the American nation to develop these type of solutions. I mean, I'm not going to say that you've invented the pool noodle, but you've got something going.
I'm almost there. I've almost got the patent down for it. But isn't that it's exciting to see that this board has been paused. I think that it is so American to use free speech to shut down a government board that would have been policing free speech. So that brings me a little bit of joy. But one thing that I would say is that what I've noticed on the left and in the progressive mediums is that they will assert a very radical viewpoint, or they will throw out a very radical suggestion. Like, we need a government disinformation board that will come and police what happens online, police what happens in people's conversations, and watch what happens in America related to people who want to go out and speak freely in a narrative that is counter to what the Biden administration thinks.
We already have that.
But then, and then people will freak out and they'll get upset, and then they'll cancel it or put it on a pause. And folks will calm down a little bit and they'll forget about it after a few months. And then the left will come back with something that's maybe, government disinformation board 2.0, but it's 65 or 70% as radical. And folks won't get as worked up about it because they'll have seen the initial proposal and think that this is just some sort of a compromise, but it's still dangerous to the fabric of our society.
And it does tend to sort of negate the conversation, where you've already shut the door on one half of the conversation before you can ever finish writing.
Right.
That's what it's feeling like.
That's true. It seems as if there does not want to be a dialogue in America because the Biden administration is trending towards understanding. I don't think they fully grasped it yet, and the midterms may be a wake-up call. That's where my company comes in with trying to help conservative clients move forward and try and take back the House, particularly. But they don't completely understand that they've lost the argument with the American people. But they start to feel it, and they're exploring ways where they can fight back. So just because they don't like what the narrative is or they don't like what the truth is, they're not going to change their policies or the way that they're governing right now. Instead, they're going to take their message and try and frame it as the absolute truth, try and validate what some of these print reporters are saying that they agree with, prop it up to the American people, and then maybe they think the American people are dumb enough that we're stupid enough to just consume this hook, line, and sinker.
We are.
But I think that people should constantly be concerned about their government. They should constantly be questioning government and the decisions that are made and looking into it for themselves. That's the American spirit. I think that's what our country was founded on, and that's what's going to keep us moving forward past this issue and into just the other issues that are going to arise during the Biden administration and beyond.
And this is a good basis. I'm wondering, and this would be an interesting opinion on your part, as to the culture shift after World War II brought more of the news into the living room by way of television, that there was less reaction, meaning before World War II, all the people, all the campaigners, all the candidates had to campaign in person and would answer questions face to face with the people in these towns. Right. Now, they can throw a 30-second ad on the air, and it may not even be theirs. It may be some political action committees that's throwing this ad on the air, and there's no real dialogue. It's just blah, blah, blah for 30 seconds they paid $500,000 for. There's no real conversation in the culture. How does that extend into this type of arena?
When I was growing up, I was encapsulated by kind of the town hall movement in the late Bush era, but particularly in the Obama years when you saw the Tea Party movement come about. And that's when a lot of these town halls really became hyped up and popular, and it was exciting to see that back and forth dialogue, and I really appreciated that. I agree that that's kind of gone by the wayside slightly, because when a candidate is looking at poll numbers, they're saying, well, why would I make myself vulnerable to the electorate for such a long period of time when I can just cut a 30-second ad and put it on television? And so the mediums seem to be shifting a little bit, and I think that candidates should get back to the one-on-one interactions in these town hall settings. But there's also additional mediums that are coming about that will not only allow that town hall setting, but allow it to be paired with digital mediums that have arisen within the last 20 or 30 years. One of them is doing Facebook town halls, where you may be in Washington, D.C., and it may be while the Congress is in session, but you can go back to your congressional office, sit down in front of a computer, launch on your Facebook, have phone calls come in, and your constituents can still grill you and hold you accountable, and everyone can watch, but you don't have to go home and hold it in a public setting. So I think that needs to happen. And one other thing I would point out is that I think it's really, really interesting to see the evolution of these different mediums, because back in the day, there weren't that many options. It was radio, and television was revolutionary whenever Richard Nixon and JFK were debating.
Oh, yeah, that was
one of my favorite. Yeah, it was humongous. And one of the things that I really appreciate about that in just studying how these mediums have evolved is that whenever Richard Nixon and JFK debated each other, those who listened on the radio thought that Richard Nixon had won. But if the folks had watched it on television, of those people, they thought that JFK had won. And why was that? It's because the arguments came across better from Richard Nixon over the radio. But when they watched it on television, Richard Nixon was sweaty, and he
looked
wavering
bad
and looking at his watch. He didn't look good. And JFK seemed calm, cool, and collected.
And colorful.
And so that's part of Right Life Media. Yeah, exactly. That's part of Right Life Media, understanding that, the vision of what people want to see in politics and in the political arena is so important, and it's growing even more important as we head further down into 2022 and beyond.
And that particular debate that you mentioned has been a case study in most media curricula to show what happened when, the JFK side really had their numbers dialed. They knew what they wanted their candidate to look like, to sound like, and they really dressed him to the nines to go up against, a very drab, older, less athletic-looking type of thing. So visually, he was far. The debate was won before it ever started, just from the visuals. And that type of psychology is what's at play at a lot of the campaigns nowadays.
Yeah, you saw that in 2016 too, when a very, very crowded Republican primary, and it actually was before 2016, but I'm just saying the 2016 presidential election, and they were leading up to the Republican nomination. You had so many people running for this spot, and the folks who could make it on stage, too many of them seemed cookie cutter or just completely alike. But Donald Trump was in the middle. He seemed to stand out above the rest. He seemed to dominate not only the conversation, but the appearance. All the television cameras pointed at him. He was rising in the polls, and he understood that. And additionally, there were several instances where the media wanted him to announce that he was running for president. I remember one instance in particular, I think it was in Washington, D.C., where the media thought he was going to announce his run for presidency in front of his newly purchased Trump Hotel in D.C. And so he set up a big press conference. All of the cameras came. They carried it live. He walked out, announced his hotel, and then walked back inside. And he understood that he could gain the free press from that and use them to his advantage. And he didn't just do that then. He used it throughout the campaign. And that understanding that is key in this environment.
Now, here at the Big Talker, we are shifting from the former Big Talker to a new Big Talker, and in some of these cases, we picked up a new show called All Things Brunswick from the Brunswick County GOP, and they did something rather unique over the period of about 2.5 months, where they brought individual candidates from both sides, all the candidates in the primary, all the ones that responded anyway, and brought them in and said, all right, who are you and why should we care? Why should we vote for you? And that was a pretty, I would say, heavy series of shows, because we got away from the issues in Brunswick County like parking in Carolina Beach and whatever else, and got into why are you running for school board? And when you have 7 people all trying to say, I want to run for school board based on this, 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 and this, it was just like a mimeograph almost.
Yeah.
So setting yourself apart has to come from somewhere else. Where do you encourage your clients to bring that from?
Well, I will answer that in a second, but when you said that, it brought up, I believe it was Robert Kennedy, who was sat down and asked, why are you running for president? And it was some of the most awkward seconds in political history, where he just sits there and shifts around.
Because I have no other job.
Because he didn't know how to answer the question. He felt it that, and I'm trying to do a deep dive and study this family. It's a fascinating political dynasty, but he just kind of felt as if it was incumbent upon him to do so. But when he was actually sat down and faced with that question of why are you running for president, he didn't have a good answer, and that marked the decline of his campaign, because people just realized he just wants the job because he feels as if he has to do it. And I don't think that necessarily based on his political circumstance. Sometimes it's good if people take a job because they feel as if they have to do it. Sometimes it's the best people, but he just felt as if he had to do it because he was part of his family, and there was no spark or energy behind that. So it's really important to try and get these candidates to understand and frame, and that's where my company comes in. Why are you running for this particular office? Because if you can't answer that fundamental question, if you can't say, well, these are the things that I want to change, here is my personal story. I'm running here because, in Wilmington, we can't pour water out of the tap without it smelling like a swimming pool. The chlorine or the Gen X and all of these particular issues. Or it's, my child went to school and they learned this particular thing. It was not consulted with me. It's a radical viewpoint, and I'm scared to death of it. But when you get these people out there and you understand exactly why they're running, and you can grill them on these particular questions, the truth comes out. Are you in it for yourself, or are you in it for the issues because you're particularly passionate about it? And that's something that's encouraging to see people come out and actually be able to articulate their viewpoint, and they immediately rise to the top of the field, especially when it's crowded in local elections.
And I think that played out this last primary. One particular candidate in question was the reality failure, Clay Aiken, right? He did not win.
Yep.
And apparently, because he still has no marketable skill, has no ability to generate income of his own, he decided to run for public office because they'll pay him to do something he has absolutely no experience with. This has got to be problematic when trying to get a candidate into the fold. How do you beat that type of crap?
Well, so I was a little bit surprised because when I saw Clay Aiken announce, he had a good video and things like that, and I thought, well, surely he has a game plan behind all of this. I mean, he should have the resources at his disposal to try and pursue legitimately an election. But that was the last I heard of him, and I had completely forgotten about him until the 17th, and I saw that he had lost. And I thought, how did this happen? I felt as if people would just rally behind him, and that's not the case.
Thankfully.
You have to go out and make your argument to the people. Just your celebrity status or perceived celebrity status is not going to be enough to bring you to the top. And I guess he just didn't have a great argument for the people. But in addition to just not being able to go out and assert your viewpoint and just get a job that brings you through a congressional tenure or whatever where the taxpayers pay for you, that campaign cycle is often used by people to also pay for themselves. Because if you're going around on the quote-unquote campaign trail, you're suddenly getting all your meals covered.
Right.
And you're getting these swanky hotels, and you're getting all of these props that a lot of people don't actually get to get, because it's a whole process. When you announce you're running for public office, if the money starts pouring in, you get to take advantage of that too.
And then you're pampered. by the fact that, much like the elected people that are already in office, they don't pay for food, they don't pay for travel, they don't pay for lodging, and yet we're paying them money. I still don't understand it. Like public servants, as I was taught as a child, public service is part of being part of the public. If you were nominated,
exactly
it's
right.
an honor, and that if you're paid to do this job, it's almost an insult to the American public. Because we're not sure. Right. Are you there because you have no other marketable skill, or are you there because you care about the condition of the American population and future? It's unclear.
Yeah. And I sure hope people see through it, and that's something that I encourage my clients to go out and message against too, because people are sick and tired of watching folks come in and say that they're going to make a change and then go up to D.C. and do nothing. A lot of people come in and say they're going to drain the swamp and then get up there and realize that it's a mud bath. And then you'd be very, very comfortable by just going up and playing ball with leadership or playing ball with the lobbyists. And
well, that's how you get the insider information, complex. So you can, beef up. What was it? And Pelosi came in worth less than $1 million, and now she's worth like $17 million or something ridiculous. I mean,
Americans should be highly suspicious of somebody who comes into office, a job that pays $170,000 over the course of a year, and then leaves in $32 million, net worth or something like that. Like that shouldn't happen, but it does. And a lot of, it's Hollywood for ugly people, Washington, D.C. And that seems to be the mentality, that you go up there and you make a name for yourself and you grow off of a celebrity brand as opposed to actually serving the people.
And that's where it breaks down, because the people are being fleeced or disinformationed, wool over the eyes kind of thing. And that's, it's hard to combat without, good information. And that's one of the things about the Big Talker I have fun with, is that we do bring on every side so that all of them can say something, and then people can decide, the listeners can decide for themselves. And usually the verdict is that it's the host, me, that's completely bat crazy. Which is fine, because I don't understand most of this stuff in the first place, which is why I ask, really basic questions like the fundamental issue that RightLife Media is about. How would you answer that? Because I don't see all of it yet.
Yeah. The fundamental basis of our company, and my biblical worldview comes from the Bible. In Ephesians, it tells us to not let any corrupt communication proceed out of our mouth. And I want to encourage my clients to go and advance positive, uplifting, conservative communications and a conservative worldview. We're about taking folks who need help framing their messaging and giving them the tools that they need, whether it be through social media or print media, radio, television, and consulting with them on the best way to deliver that to the American people or their particular audience and their brand. We want to change the narrative in our country that has been just drug into the mud and twisted around, and frame it in a way that is compelling and persuasive to not just voters and the American people, but also targeted audience like ministries through really compelling videos, through these other mediums that folks may not know how to deal with. And we're just going to keep pushing forward and trying to make sure that our clients have the absolute best possibility to advance their message and win the argument.
And your position between your clients and the real world that they're about to face also includes, it seems from your earlier referral to, striking back or pushing back at an article, isn't necessarily candidate or client based. It's overall based, that you found something that seemed to be a little off and you called them out on it, which can only help the overall conversation, not just those for your client.
Yeah, exactly. We want to actually, one of our goals is, we haven't achieved this quite yet, but we have to grow our following on these platforms so that we have the ability to push back. And what's unique about RightLife Media is that when we can bring on a client who already has a following, and then we kind of collectively allow each other to work with different clients across the nation, we can take their materials or their following on social media and share across these platforms that content. So if, for example, one client has 50,000 followers, but another one has 50, then we can take the 50,000 and use it to amplify the one that only has 50. So there's oftentimes where I will put out a tweet or try to correct the narrative, and then I'll be able to amplify that through these other clients that have larger followings. And it's because we all have the same goal, and it's to try and advance conservative values in the United States, or to try to advance these Christian principles.
And that can happen better as a team than it does as individual.
That's right. Yeah, a cord of three strands is not easily broken. And when you have these folks, you just feel like people have your back to go out there and fight this fight with you. Then you don't have to fold to the mob whenever they come after you. You have people at your disposal, and that's what we wanted to accomplish through our business, in addition to just advising them on the correct mediums to pursue their messaging strategy.
So where can people get more information on RightLife Media?
You can go to RightLifeMedia.com, RightLife media.com. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're growing into other platforms. But if you go to RightLifeMedia.com, take a look at some of the content that we've already produced, put out there, what some of our services are. We're growing, we're expanding, based here in the Wilmington, North Carolina region. We're just over in the Mason-Borough area. And then we operate often up in Washington, D.C., and sometimes across the nation. So go RightLifeMedia.com, check it out. Love to talk to you. Shoot me an email, give me a phone call. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about messaging.
And that's why we have you on the show, to let people know about it.
This is a medium. This is one of the most powerful mediums I could think of, so I had to come on and talk to you, TK, and bring it up to folks. So I sure do appreciate the opportunity.
I appreciate the opportunity to try out my apparently newly discovered interview skills.
You're fantastic. I think that you have a future in this. You go kick some of these folks off of Fox News and tell them that you're in charge now.
Well, the difference between me and the Fox News host is that I enjoy reading books.
Well, you would do great up in Washington, because all they do is read off a teleprompter, so you would be right at home.
Oh, I have typed many a teleprompter in my life, and I have fun. Like, if you've ever saw Anchorman, that question mark at the end is not unrealistic. It's absolutely hilarious.
The other day, Joe Biden read out end of quotes, so I feel as if they could use some help too.
A little bit of coaching. Well, I don't know. Would you take Biden as a client for RightLife Media?
I would take him as a client and then advise him to just go home. That would be my consulting advice. The best possible thing you could do, Mr. President, is resign and go home. Here's the invoice.
And then we have Ms. Harris as our president during that period, but we only have 2 years left of that.
I'd bring her on and give the same advice. It would end very quickly.
I would have thought you brought them on and just started a whole new conversation to sort of push them a little more into the reasonable range. But then again, I don't know how this stuff works.
Yeah, I think Americans have seen over the last year and a half just how reasonable they can be, and I don't have fairly high hopes. But I'd love to have a conversation with them. Mr. President, if you're listening to the Big Talker right now, give me a phone call.
Well, I'm sure one of the Secret Service people is. Big Brother somewhere is listening to the Big Talker.
One of the 3 government agencies on my phone will tip them off, and I'm sure I'll get a phone call later on.
Well, let me know about it, and we'll bring you back on to see if we can't follow that case. That does sound like a breaking story that's going to continue and keep us, give us some content for the next few months. Because we need something between now and November overall, because now that the primaries are over, we have a whole new range of conversations between now and November that's going to really go I'm predicting will go haywire. Starting about June, I guess, is when everybody starts getting their midterm campaigns in high gear. Because now all the PACs will be in full gear, the PACs will be in full gear, the GOPs or DNCs themselves will be in full gear.
Right, yeah. They started ramping up a little while ago. It really depends on when the primaries are. And obviously, primaries are over for North Carolina, and now it's on to the general. I've been on some of these campaigns, and they start way earlier than a lot of folks think. And, so they're off to the races right now. And it's going to be very interesting.
Well, I hope to keep you guys active in this as well, so that the fight all the way to November is definitely a winner has won type of situation. No more of this, less than 1%. Right. It should be, 2 or 3% easily. You don't need a recount. You lost. Go home.
recounts, runoffs, all that stuff. It kind of complicates a lot of the procedures and things like that, and it's different for every race, so it's very odd sometimes.
And I also discovered, because there was a potential for a runoff in the Brunswick County race, and the Brunswick chair had him on the show, and he was like, we don't want a runoff because, one, it tears up a lot of time. Two, it bottoms out the war chest of the campaign. And three, the election itself costs money to the taxpayers. So
I think if you broke down how much it costs in all of that every day, not just with campaign, but also with taxpayers, people would be shocked at the amount of money that actually gets dumped into these races or poured into even the runoffs and things like that. Because if you have a runoff, then you arguably would sometimes have to spend even more because you're just dealing with two candidates now and the field is not split. Most of the time, two candidates. And so you're just trying to, advance into finally getting the nomination, and then you got to spend money to try to win in the general. So these things can be a cash cow.
Oh yeah, and that's like if you think about any time you've gone in to vote, they have to hire all those same people to come back for a runoff. They have to print all new ballots for the runoff. It's its own expense that we can eliminate just by being a little more aware of the conversation that's happening, and that's why we have RightLife Media, the All Things Brunswick, all these different places that give the candidate unfettered access directly to an audience.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's very important, and even for my clients too, want to keep it as cost efficient as possible, because being on the other side of this and actually running campaigns or working on them, I know how expensive it can be, and so we try to keep those costs very low just to ensure that our clients have the absolute best possible chance to retain their funds and just move on into whatever other arena they need to.
And the greatest expense, I would think, would be the resource of time, where if the candidate is being distracted by a lot of things, when they have somebody like you guys at RightLife Media to sort of field some of that so that the client is not distracted and derailed, if you will, by things that should not concern them.
Right, exactly. And, one of the most terrifying things that you can hear on a phone call is, my name is fill in the blank. I'm with, the Washington Post, the New York Times, and we're calling to talk to you about, some issue. And people don't know how to deal with the media a lot of times, but we have a ton of experience in that. And it's encouraging to me to be able to come in to a lot of these situations and say, hey, take a deep breath, calm down. This is not an issue. We've dealt with this before. We know how to talk to the media. We know how to talk to reporters, and we've been able to call people off stories before. We've been able to clarify things so that our clients have the best possible brand awareness, or not brand awareness, but their brand does not suffer at all.
Yeah, they have the information to keep themselves looking good and keeping their front intact.
Because that's a skill. I mean, you wouldn't walk into a courtroom without a lawyer and just try to
expect to win, right?
Exactly, expect to win. So we try to do. We have the same mentality with the media and reporters. We try to go out and have an opportunity to try to say, hey, look, calm down, take a breath. We know the process. We know what to do, and we're going to be here to help you.
And I have to say that I was honored to be requested, meaning I did not look to you to come to bring you on the show. So I'm not actually here to grill you and fry you or bring bad. You guys called me saying, hey, we're a new company and we want to get the word out. And now that I understand a little more about who you are, it's wonderful to have you here because it's part of the conversation. But you couldn't have gotten that if somebody's calling, like you said, from a newspaper that's already aimed at doing destruction or with some sort of action in mind. They have a plan or, God forbid the word agenda. Whereas here at the Asylum, you can call in and, I put the number right there on the screen. You want to call in and talk, purple hippopotamus, you can. That's totally fine.
I think that's going to be our next hit. I have some hot takes on purple hippopotamuses.
Oh, good. You and Andrew are definitely going to hit it off because he has the purple hippopotamus as one of his group of apathetic voters that, we had less than 20% turnout in North Carolina for the primary.
Yeah.
So a lot of purple hippopotamus.
Right. That's key to understanding too, because the the turnout in a lot of these elections, you have to know who's actually going to turn out. That's something that I want our company to grow into, is data analysis. And I've worked with several other fantastic companies with a lot of young people who just go in and know who these 4 out of 4 voters are going to be, who the people who go and vote every single time in the election, and you voter target through mail and through knocking on doors and IP targeting. And so winning campaigns is not about, who has the best heart or who has the best argument. It's how you pitch that argument and who you target it to.
And a lot of commentators, I guess that would be the term, have pointed towards the amount of money in a campaign as to their percentage chance of winning. Is this? Do you find this to be accurate?
That is accurate to an extent. Let's say that, for example, the 2 campaigns have $50,000 each, but one of them spends all of their money on television targeting to an audience that isn't going to actually turn out and vote, and the other uses $50,000 to take in IP digital targeted ads through Facebook or Google search results. Well, you're taking the $50,000 on TV and just throwing it to the wind, because you're taking voters who are voting in Democratic primaries and those who lean Democratic but vote independent, and you're getting people who aren't even necessarily in your voting area, because if it's a local race, you're advertising sometimes in a market that's broadcasting in Pender County when you're in New Hanover County. And so, taking the $50,000 and putting it on digital ads where you can say, okay, I want to target people who match this voter list that I have that I can upload to Facebook. And then so if, people have on a public record that I go and vote 4 out of every 4 primaries, then I'm going to get targeted with a digital ad. I'm going to see their content, and I'm going to be more inclined to vote for them. So money is an important factor, but it's how you use that money. Because if you take it and just throw it at something like TV or radio and you miss your mark, you're going to have a better opportunity targeting voters on digital ads and advertising.
And that's why RightLifeMedia.com exists. It took me a second to get the name right. I'm sorry about that.
No worries at all. That's it. RightLifeMedia.com. We do that type of digital targeting where we identify the voters and we promote our content to those people.
It's more effective because expenditure is going to be a large part of the game, but effective expenditure, which, I think we may want to graduate Right Life Media from just handling candidates to handling the national budget, maybe?
I would love to get my hands on the national budget. I would love to keep my hands
for
on
everybody.
my money I know. I would like to keep my hands on the money that I have to give over that funds the national budget, because I have been in Washington and I see what kind of garbage that people spend their money on. And so I would love to get my paws on it. If you know anybody, give me their phone number. I'll give them a call.
My first question would be, why do you need to eat at a fancy restaurant? All of your constituents are okay with McDonald's.
Yep. Nope, you're exactly right.
No more $30 lunch. You can do it for $5 at Hardee's in a bag.
I'm telling you, if folks just came to Wilmington, North Carolina and sat at Jackson's Barbecue and talked to normal, regular people, they'd, number one, have better food, and number two, they actually get the pulse on what's happening in the nation. I have to come back to Wilmington every few weeks and just sit down in a local spot with my granddad and his best buddy and hear them just give hot takes on politics, because it helps me understand what's actually percolating back home and what people are actually hearing and what's actually breaking through all the noise, what sort of media that they consume. It's very important for me to understand what the consumer is actually getting, and it's amazing what will just come out in conversation without me even prompting it, by just saying, well, what do you think of this issue? And then I'll say, oh, where did you hear that? And that's very telling.
And it's the group that you just mentioned, it was you said your grandfather?
Yep, it's my pawpaw and his best buddy, Bill Clark, and we'll just go and sit
And these are guys that are retired, and they have time during the day.
Yep.
Like myself, I have to concentrate on day-to-day, make the bills, that I don't have the brain power, bandwidth, or spare time to process all of the political information, but these guys actually can. So their awareness is going to be much higher. Right, it's going to be much higher. I don't know if I'd call that a hobby.
Well,
a scary
it's their hobby, and it's their duty as Americans, first of all. But it's their hobby to do a deeper dive than most Americans do, and to give hot takes to me about it.
And that's got to be helpful. I mean, because now you have a perspective
Yeah.
outside of any other claimed, if you will, demographic. Because there are, some groups that have said, we own the demographic of this, 18 to 21 or whatever, where you have a demographic that's pretty much untainted.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I mean, like, I'm 26 years old, so it's also it's important for me to go out and try and understand what a different age group is thinking about stuff, or what kind of media they're consuming, because it's vastly different than what I'm consuming. Because I'll be on Facebook and social media and Twitter a lot of times, and they're hearing it from television or radio and print.
And these are this is the generation you're polling that remembers what it was like being rationed during World War II. And everything since then, the gender revolution and equal rights, and the other social revolutions and minority rights, etc., that seeing that growth and perspective over a period of, like in your case, 26 years, my case, 50 years, almost 60. In their case, they've seen so much longer. They've watched the tree grow, is the Oriental expression, I think, where, we are seedlings by comparison. And their insights are probably more far-reaching because they understand it from the Dust Bowl. They understand it from, the soup lines and bread lines and issues that, not necessarily back to the 20s, but certainly from the 40s on, would give a perspective that you and I just do not have.
Yep, you're exactly right. They've seen America in vastly different circumstances, and in many cases, they never want to go back to that. And they understand how a lot of the current issues that are being played out right now would have had an impact in their time, and what it could have implications on for America moving forward. So it's important to get that perspective too. And they're also an important part of the electorate that often are more dialed into what's going on than some of the other folks. And so I want to understand what kind of media that they like to watch or consume, what they draw from that. Do they agree with what they heard on television, or do they disagree with it? Do they like what is being done up in Washington, and what's their perspective that's being shared in their living rooms and their homes? Because I think I have some sort of grasp on what's going on in Washington, D.C. when I'm working up in the Capitol. But when I come home, it might be slightly different based on the medium that they watch and consume.
Yeah, and that's the difference, Andrew pointed out in one of his shows, the difference between the people we elect in are temporary. But the people manning the phones, manning the desks, running from building to building, they've been there 10, 20, 30 years.
Yep.
So
You're exactly
there's two
right.
different
And so it's important to
machinations.
listen.
Yeah, so we look at the candidates, but we forget that the candidates are basically ideologists coming into a machine that's already running.
Yep.
Do you think that
you're
causes
exactly
a
right.
problem in trying to make these changes, or get these conversations straightened out or cleared up, or whatever the case may be?
Sometimes, and I think that the conversations can be completely framed in a way that's not relevant to what's actually going on at home. And people who live up in Washington, D.C. and think they know what's going on with their constituents may be very surprised when they come home and go to a restaurant or a grocery store and they hear something completely different from them, where they'll be up in their little echo chambers of the legislative buildings, and they think that they have a great proposal, but they haven't checked with their constituents. And let me tell you, like, they'll let you know. The voters will let you know very early on, before they even go to the voting booths, whether or not they are pleased with the elected officials' stance on a particular issue. You'll get phone calls, you'll get emails, you'll get texts, you'll get social media posts. Sometimes it can get completely overwhelming, and that is why it's important for candidates to understand, not only before they go out with their messaging, but also where they stand on particular issues. Is it something that my voters and my constituents actually care about?
So one last question for you, because a lot of what we've covered is the candidate getting their message to the people.
Yeah.
What about in reverse, as you just mentioned, when they're starting to get questions or pushback or such from other people, and as you said, from other media sources that are, less friendly, I should say, as a term, to what you guys are trying to do? How is that balanced? How do you balance that?
I would, so the important for voters to actually get the message to the elected officials or the candidates, there's several different ways. If there's an elected official, I've seen opinions change in Washington because maybe 15 people call into their member of Congress's office.
Really?
And they say, hey, there is a bill that is being voted on today, and I am from the district, I am one of your constituents, and I am deeply concerned about this. And after about the 10th or 11th call, the person answering the phones thinks, well, maybe I need to flag this for my superior. And then they'll go and speak to the legislative director or the communications director. And then that person will bring up with the congressman, hey, sir, I had 12 people call today from your district and say that they are very upset about this piece of legislation. And then they'll take a harder look at it. So that's an important way for people to go out and try to make their voice heard. Just as simple as making a phone call and getting some of your friends to go out there and do it. Because if you have 15 angry constituents, don't underestimate what kind of damage they can do.
Right,
in the
each
media
one could be
or at home
representing 10 people.
Yeah. Because imagine if a news agency got 15 calls about a particular issue, they'd probably run a little bit of a story on it, because that's a small sampling of a larger population that's probably upset about an issue. And the member of Congress understands that as well, because if they vote that particular way, that 15 group of people is an advocacy group all of a sudden, and they are your most vocal opponent for opposing something that was deeply concerning to them.
And how do you encourage your clients to listen to the overall murmur or conversation? Because, you know, as you mentioned, some of the issues that the voters are concerned with, they project ahead of time, before the election, before anything of that nature.
Right.
How do you encourage your clients to hear that, to listen? You know, how do you tune into that?
Yeah, well, number one, I would say it's essential for somebody to actually be present in their district or in the area that they're going to be running in, and speak to other people who are like-minded, because there's a lot of folks that are going to be like those clients who actually want to go out there and do something, but they're not going to have the time or the resources or the ability to actually go and run for office. So understanding what the pulse of the district is going to be, or the pulse of the office, is essential to actually going out there and trying making some form of change. There's also other, traditional methods like polling and going out and talking to advocacy groups on either side of these issues and trying to take into account what your family and your friends and your neighbors actually think. You'll be surprised at, just how much of a consensus there is among the area that you're running to represent and your family members, because they'll hear it from other people. They'll go to work and they'll talk to their friends, and their opinions are going to be shaped by the people that they interact and come into contact with. And then if you start to get kind of a sense that, hey, something needs to change, or I need to go out there and champion this particular issue, you're going to want to go out there and do it. And that's kind of where we come in, with looking at that messaging and saying, yes, this does line up with something that's close to the district's heart, or that's close to this particular office's heart, and we want to try to go out and help you advance this messaging. So I would just make sure that people understand what the issues are, where people stand on them. It's just something that people actually care about, versus something that, is going to just be completely ignored, and you're running on a platform where nobody actually cares about this one issue. So, talk to the folks who are around you, talk to the people who are actually involved in these issues in these particular career fields that might be impacted by the policy decisions that you want to go out and make, and then come to us and have a conversation about advancing that messaging.
Because it almost seems at some points like a farmer is asking for farming advice from a used car salesman.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, you're right.
But it seems that the other, part of this, as I'm understanding it, is that the pushback that a candidate might receive is actually a good thing, to sort of give them insight as to what the conversation they may not be receiving in their own conversations.
Yeah. Pushback,
right? A little bit of pushback helps define. Yeah.
Right. Pushback is better than backlash. When you push back against something, it means that you're trying to make this person aware of a policy position that is counter to what they actually like or want to advance. But backlash means that you've not listened to your constituents, and you've not listened to the people that actually matter, and now they're going to take action against you. And so we help out in the pushback stage, not the backlash stage. We will help out in the backlash stage, but we don't think we ever need to get to that point, because we will then understand what the messaging strategy needs to be, what kind of issues that people are actually talking about and caring about, and then how to best go deliver that argument.
And I can't thank you enough for helping delineate the differences between pushback and backlash.
Yes.
Because one's a
absolutely.
conversation
Very
and
important.
one's more combative, it seems.
Yes. You don't want to have the combative. You want to have the productive, constructive conversations.
Man. And that's why we have RightLife Media on the radio this morning.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And I sure do appreciate you having me on and speaking to everybody. And again, RightLifeMedia.com. Come have a conversation with us, and then we'll help go advance that messaging with other people in the community based here in Wilmington, North Carolina, the most beautiful place to live on planet Earth.
That's why I'm here.
That's it. Yes, sir. We'll stay for a little while.
Well, thank you so much for your time, sir, and we look forward to some more conversations with you, because that's sort of what we do here at the Big Talker. We never shut up. I mean, that's sort of our thing. So,
I don't either.
With that in mind,
I don't either. Well, thank you, TK.
Thank you. That's been a wonderful morning. With that in mind, I need to do the. I think I'll go with this one. Again, I'm a new guy to this. You know, I don't do morning shows very often. Again, it's been Luke Ball, from the founder and CEO of RightLife Media, here on the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad. That's going to do it for our broadcast week. Don't forget, on Sunday is the Twice on Sunday Heard Tell interviews from Andrew Donaldson. And we will see you on Monday. Thanks again, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you then.
Keeping Holden Beach informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
This is Radio Free Dixie, and I'm Mark Allen. We often hear people complain about fake news, but fake history is just as bad. The impression that many people have about the Old South is the result of fake history. For example, have you ever wondered why it was okay for 13 American colonies to secede from England, but wrong for 13 Confederate states to secede from the United States? The truth is that both groups had a God-given right to secede, and plenty of good reasons for it. If your ancestors fought for Dixie, hold your head high and defend truth and honor. That's what real men do. Join the Confederate Legion, sponsored by the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Go to MakeDixieGreatAgain.com. That's MakeDixieGreatAgain.com.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. In South Carolina, a former Horry County Sheriff's deputy will spend the next 18 years in prison. Stephen Flood has been found guilty on all charges in the drowning of 2 female mental patients in his custody during Hurricane Florence. One of them was from Charlotte. Flood and his co-worker at the time, Joshua Bishop, drove a detention center transport van into floodwaters in Marion County on September 18, 2018. Wendy Newton of Charlotte and Nicolette